first of all, I want to congratulate you on the success of your play, The Great Bank Robbery. I personally loved it, and it is really well done. Okay, so I have a few questions for you.
Hit me.
Number one, creating a play as a high school student isn't something everyone would do. From what I know, you devoted a long time into this. First of all, what made you have the idea of creating The Great Bank Robbery? And how long was the writing process?
What made me think that? Well, it was actually during the movie night for Legally Blonde. During that, I was thinking, hey, what if I made a play? Just a spontaneous idea. And then I approached Tiki, who was there. She wasn't directing, but she was present. I was like, Tiki, we've known each other for 2 plays. What would you think if I wrote one for the 1X next year? She was like, if you want to do it, do it. Mm-hmm. So I was like, sure, with actually no intention of really following through. But at some point during that night, this is when we had that giant, like, 2-story, life-size Barbie dream house. The set was, like, half built, but we still had the 2nd floor, so I was, like, hanging out up there.
Yep.
And I was just spitballing ideas with Henry Wasserman. I was like, what if we did a show that was like a bank robbery where everything just went to shit? Went to hell. And you had all these different characters that had to interact with each other and just became a complete farce. So we were like throwing characters like the pregnant one was a pretty early idea. We had these 2 bumbling robbers, or 3 at the time, that actually went in, and they're like old buddies, and like this was their last hurrah, and things changed since then, but that was kind of the first conception. I was just throwing ideas at Henry. And then somehow, for some reason, I just decided to start writing a few scenes for it. I wasn't like highly motivated, but I was like, yeah, might as well do a scene. And I liked what I was doing, so I just kept at it, and I was like, well, I have 2 scenes now, might as well write 3, and then 4 and 5, and it finally became this whole thing, until the end of last year, when I approached Tiki again. I was like, hey, remember that time I like very, very casually mentioned that I might write a play? Well, I did.
Go and did
and she was like, oh, good for you. I was like, you want to read it? And he's like, sure. We kind of already know what we're doing for the 1 act next year, but it might be fun. So I gave her a copy. It was like 2/3 done, even though it was about 40 pages longer than it ended up. Wow. It was an 80-page manuscript. It didn't have an ending. The entire last act was missing. And I just gave it to her, and she read it, and she liked it enough to decide to throw in a huge amount of faith and do it for the show. And then for the next 6 months in between that and the start of production, I had to come up with an ending and pretty much edit the entire thing from 80 pages, or it was almost 90 when it was all done, to the 42-page script that you guys saw at Wayne Fleet.
Nice. So the whole thing took you like a little bit more than a year?
The first draft took about 2 months.
Yeah.
It was very infrequent writing at first. I like wrote a scene and then I left it for a full month, and then I came back and kept chipping away a little bit, and then like right before I showed it to Tiki, that was like 2 weeks of heavy duty writing. Mm-hmm. So I'd say the whole thing, and then the drafting was very infrequent. It was like it just happened to be a large amount of time in between. So I'd say the whole process was probably 6 months.
So you didn't like make a schedule for yourself, or
Nope, completely spontaneous.
That's very impressive. So another question coming up. What are the challenges in the writing of the play and later on in the making of the play while working with the cast and crew?
The main challenge was not doing anything. What me and Tiki discussed when she said we were going to do it is my role in the process. Mm-hmm. We decided right off the bat that I wouldn't act because it would be strenuous if I had to take a backseat. As an actor, it's a very personal journey. Your work is very much, this is what I have to do, this is my role. Other people's jobs are their own. They work together, and when we come together, this is the product that we make. But my one job is making my performance relatable and believable and as true as I can. But when you're in a creative backstage position, like the director or the writer or the lighting designer, whatever it is, you have to take into account every other variable. Where are these actors standing? What's the set like? What's the coloring that I have to match? How does everything move together to create the process? And if I had acted, I would be very distracted by those other moving elements. And I wouldn't be able to focus and really lock into my own process. So right off the bat, we knew I wasn't going to act. And since Tiki was already in the seat to direct, we had a long discussion about what I would do, and we came up with that would be the in-house writer. So any changes that had to be made to the script or in production, I would make. But in general, I would be very inactive. And for a while, that took me some time to adjust to not doing anything. I really wanted to get my hands on every process, and I was always there building the set and everything, but I really couldn't interfere with other people's processes. So I'd say that was the biggest challenge. And then, when you're the writer and you have a very specific vision in mind, there's no way that can be replicated because of realism.
Yep.
You can't realistically do a lot of things that you have in your head. So there were some challenging moments where I had to let go of some preconceptions I had about my story and my characters, and to let Tiki and everyone else in the creative process kind of make it their own, which is amazing. You get some really amazing, astonishing, surprising things that I never thought were possible from the script happen. But at the same time, it's your child that's being warped by something exterior. And that took a little time to get used to, but I really couldn't see this play any other way than it ended up turning out. I couldn't be happier.
It's great. So I think your answer already touched on some part of my question number 3, but I will just tweak that a little bit, and I'll ask, as the creator of the play, instead of an active member of the cast, what are the differences? Like, are you still able to connect with the cast members on this play as the creator? Were there like communications behind the stage, or after rehearsals, that some of the cast members were able to ask you questions about the play or make suggestions, something like that?
There was. This was a very unique experience since, for the most part, I'd worked with almost all of the cast before as an actor, so we had a kind of connection there. And we all knew each other, and it was kind of part of that theater family. So it was very interesting to be on a different pages as them during that process, and I think it took a little time to adjust to that. But it was amazing to see these people I knew become these characters I'd created, even if I wasn't a part of it myself in that way. And I helped them through any understanding. There's a lot of film references in the show, and most people didn't know those, so I'd go through them with the cast if they needed to understand those, or kind of explain the influences. So I walked them through that, or they would ask me questions. I tried not to give actual directions, since the last thing you want is a director giving directions and another person trying to throw in their 3 cents. It kind of just confuses the actors. So I didn't really give any direction, but I gave suggestions with where the character comes from. If it's not explicit in the script, I talk about their backstories if they wanted to know anything. So I was kind of active in that way. But it was just kind of an amazing thing to watch as an observer, seeing these people kind of come up with these own conceptions of the characters. Again, that I never would have seen coming. They're just completely original and really amazing. I think that the best example is Bodhi's portrayal of Bill. In my mind, I had that character thought it was the gritty, hard-boiled detective who was like 2 days away from retiring and just wanted to get this over with. But during the table read that we had in September, really early on, he just was like, I'm going to try doing a Jewish grandmother from New York City. Okay. Sure. And he did it, and it was not what I thought the character was, but it was completely amazing. And I think that's one of the standout characters in the entire show. He really took it in a direction no one saw coming and completely made it his own. And that's probably the strongest example of that. But throughout the process, everyone was having these little epiphanies about the play that I would either help them through or just kind of be blown away by in their originality. I hope that answered the question.
Yes. So, people who have seen the play all loved it, and in the 1X competition you did really well and went on to the States by winning at the regionals. Did you expect this amount of success from your play before its show? No?
Not at all.
Not at all.
I wrote this play with the one... Well, I knew people would enjoy it.
Yeah.
I wrote it to be enjoyed. I thought it was a nice, like, popcorn flick. You know, it was like, this is made to entertain. I was writing it during that a really hard time at Waynfleet, where no one was in a good place, and I didn't want to do something that was heavy or just like there was a message that's like, you know, trying to change people in any way. I just wanted people to laugh, which sounds really cliched, but I was just I was sick of all of this like heavy-handed messaging that we were getting at the time, and I just wanted something that was unpretentious and just entertaining for the sake of being entertaining. So I wrote the play with the thought that I wouldn't have a message, that this wouldn't be any more than what you saw, and I just wanted people to go out of it a little bit happier than they went in. So in that way I knew people would enjoy it, because that's what it was made to do. But to win regionals and everything, I was like, okay, wow, like some play that's a period drama with like heavy acting and, you know, handmade costumes and lavish sets would win. But for some reason they picked ours. A lot of that was our judges. They're younger, they're in their 20s, the majority of them. And this play is kind of written for that age group. They would really appreciate it the most. So we got lucky there, and they really liked it. So I'm still it took me a while. I think that the moment I realized we'd won was after we were stepping off stage with the award. It took me like a good 10 minutes for it to really sink in and hit me. It was a complete surprise. And I couldn't be happier with the results. I mean, just to move on to States was a really amazing experience.
So the Great Bank Robbery was your first and only play that you've written. In terms of your future plans when you go to college, do you plan on continuing writing plays or to pursue in filmmaking and make a choice between the two, both in the field of performing arts? Yeah,
I'd say my passion is definitely more in film. Theater is an amazing part of my high school life. I couldn't ask for a better community and a better experience than I've had there. But I think in my future as I see it now, I like to use what I've learned in theater, especially in writing this play, and working with the actors in the way that, and the other people in the production in the way that I did, and kind of adapt that to my focus in film, which is what I'm going to college for. So I don't know if I'm going to write another play. I don't see it as an impossibility. There's wonderful confines to stage writing that isn't in film that I really enjoy. But for the most part, I think I am going to keep my focus on screenplays and adaptation for film in general. I'm not entirely sure what in that case, but that's what I'm going to figure out in the next 4 years.
Definitely. All right, that will be all of my questions for you. Thank you very much for being on my interview. And
Thanks, Shuhao.
I wish you all the luck in college, or in, deciding on which college you go.
Yeah, that's the thing I have to do.